Good evening and welcome to the February 26, 2024 City Council Roundtable meeting. I am Mayor Ross and tonight's meeting is being brought to you live using video conferencing technology provided by Zoom. And tonight's recording will be posted on this city's YouTube channel. So welcome to everyone and thank you for joining us tonight. City Clerk Dean, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Benson,
Here.
Councilmember Watton,
Here.
Councilmember Holloway,
Here.
Councilmember Washington,
Here.
Councilmember Cotton, here, Councilmember Christensen, here, Councilmember Johnson, and Mayor Ross.
I'm here. So it is snowing out, so I anticipate perhaps Mr. Councilmember Johnson will be showing up a little bit later. So
He's on his way.
okay, he's on his way. Okay, so we will not excuse him because we will be arriving soon. So thank you. All right, so we will account for all council members. Now we move to the first item of business, which is to approve the agenda. Council may have a motion to approve the agenda, and this is just the roundtable agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, second by Councilor Watton. Any discussion? Seeing none, all of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? And the roundtable agenda passes. So the evening special business is a comprehensive plan, housing and transportation elements discussion, which will be led by our Community Development Director, Emily Artecha. Director Artecha.
Good evening, council members. I have a brief presentation that will prepare you for your discussion on housing and transportation. So let me just lead you through a few slides. I'd like to go over the schedule for the comprehensive plan review, as well as the processing of the comprehensive plan. Then I'd like to give a brief summary of these two elements, housing and transportation, and then allow some time for you to review and discuss. You might have recalled seeing this particular slide at our last roundtable. Again, I just wanted to recap that each one of these elements as they come forward to you have community engagement, planning commission input, then they're brought to you for council workshops. These all feed into the draft goals and policies. At the same time, in the back end, there's technical analysis and supporting documentation being prepared, agency review, and then we'll finally get to the final comp plan approved, adopted. And what that looks like on a calendar, as you can see, I've circled here the two elements that we're looking at today. We'll be continuing forward with capital facilities and utilities, economic development and environment next month, followed by consolidated draft plan review in early summer and SEPA review, and then adoption at the end of the year. Just a brief overview of the housing policy here. Put together this little matrix. I think the one thing that stands out from this these sets of policies is that it was all about affordability, affordability, and affordability. Those were the three words that were used by the Planning Commission chair when he brought this element to the CD committee. So you see policies on ADUs, small lots, cottage housing, provisions for seniors, and of course, housing for all income levels. Sorry about that. I see that the L is missing off on that last word. There's also provisions for affordable housing and sustainable housing design. So we can get all into that when we look at the attachment. And then if time allows, we'll move into the transportation policy review. Here you'll see safe and efficient transportation systems, equity and accessibility systems, and even one for air quality, as we look at ways to become more efficient and remove single occupancy vehicles. I'd also like to note that there's some new special provisions for e-bikes and e-scooters and LOS standards, levels of service standards for bicycle and pedestrian. That's the end of my presentation. It was brief, but I'm happy to answer any questions before we start looking into the packet material.
Will you lead us through the discussion of the packet material?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So the packet material is quite long and and somewhat complex, but it's in chronological order. So for example, on the housing element, you'll see that there's a staff memo summarizing the housing policy review, leading you through a background and analysis, and then, coming up to date with the recommendation from the Planning Commission with the Community Development Committee recommended edits, and that is attachment 1. You can look at some of the historical documents that continue on with attachment 2. That's the signed Planning Commission recommendation, PSRC comments. Those are some of the agency reviews that we've been getting along. The 2024 draft comprehensive plan outline gives you an idea of like how this document's being structured. Then we can go into just the sheer volume of amendments that have occurred at the GMA level, at the state level, 1995 to 2023, which are reflected in these proposed policies. This particular housing element is unique since so much of the housing element was being driven by state law and House Bill 1220. I've included some key definitions that maybe help you understand what the terminology is in the draft policies. You can see the evolution spreadsheet. So a lot of how the document's been put together and the policies and the goals were formulated. And then last, maybe one of the most important components is the public comment table, giving you an idea of what the comments were from our public outreach efforts, including our open houses, our online surveys, and other information that we received along the way.
Please note that Councilmember Johnson has joined us.
Is that helpful?
So I think tonight we're going to review is attachment 1.
Correct.
Okay. And so we could do similar to what we did at the last special workshop where we, basically addressed each one. So reading the title and we could talk through A through G, or if there's any particular ones that you want to review. So Director Arteche, do you want to read off the first title?
Sure, I could. Yeah. The first one is goal 1. A sufficient mix of housing types, sizes, costs, densities enables current and future citizens of all economic levels, age groups, and household makeups to live within the city and provide housing to meet the needs of local employees. And that's a mouthful. I could read it again.
So I think the first one then is create a supportive environment for an innovative housing. So kind of diverse housing sizes, types.
Would you like me to read the first policy? Sure. The first one is create a supportive environment for innovative housing that promotes city goals for affordability and housing to meet diverse households sizes that promotes city goal that diverse household sizes, types, and age ranges by considering flexibility in density and design standards. I have to beef up that font to read it. So create a supportive environment for innovative housing that promotes city goals for affordability and housing to meet diverse household sizes, types, and age ranges by considering flexibility in density and design standards.
But B
is allow accessory dwelling units and small lot housing with regulations that minimize procedural requirements and address neighborhood compatibility. C, in residential areas with alley access, incentivize and allow for small lot and cottage housing subject to regulations to address issues of neighborhood compatibility. D, support the siting and operating of emergency, transitional, and permanent supportive housing and ensure that sufficient land is zoned to allow their location near shops, services, and transit, prioritizing locations near historically underserved populations.
Counselor Benson,
What does that mean? Historically underserved populations?
That gets at racial inequities.
So are we proposing making race a part of our housing plan? Is that what we're looking to do? Are we failing if we don't get X number of folks to move in of each race?
Counselor Johnson.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that could be referring to is the history of, I believe the term is redlining, where there were neighborhoods, I don't know if there are any in Snoqualmie,
Yeah.
where there were restrictions on who could live there based on race. But it doesn't necessarily have to be redlining. It could be other ways that the same effect was achieved, even if not through a particular ordinance or something that made it legally so. There are ways that banks would historically just kind of agree, yeah, we're just not going to give loans to these people, even if there was a law on the
And
books.
are we
It's
concerned that
Just a
that's
second,
happening
Counselor
now?
Benson.
Are we concerned that that's happening now? Is that something that we need to address right now in Snoqualmie?
Can I respond to that?
Counselor Johnson.
Thanks. So the issue is that it could be that when it happened in the past, that there could be places where even up to today, the effects of what happened then are still present, even if those exact practices are not happening now. I think that that's what that could be referring to.
Wait, Counselor Cotton, and then Director.
I also took it to read here that by supporting the siting and operating of emergency, transitional and permanent supportive housing, that has to do with homeless population and displaced families and also maybe, like a battered women's situation or many of these other things that require those stages of housing. I didn't necessarily, so I took that to be more of the underserved populations than the redlining issue.
Director Archecha.
In your definitions, there is a definition for vulnerable populations, similar, so race, ethnicity, low-income populations, populations disproportionate impact by environmental harms.
Counselor Washington.
Yeah, so when I'm looking at this and I'm looking at historically underserved populations, race could be a consideration, but also other factors like socioeconomic status. I think should be considered.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
Well, so prioritize locations near historically underserved populations. Where is that on the map? Because I'm not sure this actually, I understand what you're saying. You're totally right, but I'm not sure it applies in the context of Snoqualmie. We're fairly integrated. You may talk some, I don't want to go what I might say. The other part is I've had opportunity to visit some age transitional housing, call it that. And quite frequently with a lot of these you're talking about, the business model doesn't necessarily support them being close to your merchant or your core business, they just can't afford the property, can't afford the tax rate. They will look for a different section of town in which they can still operate and make the case close. So I'm glad to encourage them. I'm just not sure if they'd say, I can't do that for these reasons, is there a backside to this that says, no, we really want you over here, but understand if you want to be over here for other reasons?
But I also think, we have housing goals and different levels of affordability and future homes, future housing that is built, we would require a certain level of affordable. So it might be 0 to 30% or wherever. And so if you, for instance, remodeling, doing some different things in historic downtown or even up on Snoqualmie Ridge and Center Street, where you can actually have like living units above shops. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can envision of what changes would look like in
But that
between now and
example is
30
contrary to what this
years.
says.
Well, sure it does. It says that because it allows,
Because we're integrating affordable housing with an existing development, with an existing commercial development, not having it located to historically underserved populations.
but those, I mean, we have well, again, there's a broad definition of what underserved is, right? Councilor Johnson?
Yeah, and also, it doesn't have to be that there are historically underserved populations that are in a particular location in the city. It could be that there's historically, however that's said.
Says the teacher.
Yeah, whatever that is. An historically underserved population that is dispersed geographically throughout the city, but due to socioeconomic status, as mentioned before, other things, other factors, they are historically underserved. And to your specific point, what they said was, or what I thought I heard you say was the issue of making sure that it happens. And I think that what this says is allow it to happen. It doesn't even say encourage it to happen.
Okay.
Yes, that it just says allow it.
Dr. Archett?
Yeah, and just a little background on that. That particular terminology is coming out of our middle housing and displacement risk analysis that we did this past year. So, we're trying to provide that continuity from the studies that we did do, from the legislation that was approved in House Bill 1220 that required cities to do middle housing analysis. So
Any other comments on that? Or move to
E,
E.
allow and encourage a range of housing types for seniors, such as independent living, various degrees of assisted living, and skilled nursing care facilities to increase opportunities for seniors to live in accessible housing with nearby services. F, consider allowing more senior housing in the city where appropriate with existing incentives.
Councilor Johnson?
What's the difference between E and F? Not that I'm opposed to them, just are they a little bit redundant? I'd be fine with maybe just dropping F because I think that E already says it.
I agree. When I read that earlier, it just seems like it was redundant. Councilor Benson and then Councilor Cotton.
One thing that's in F that I'm not picking up on in E is the existing incentives.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are those existing incentives? Is there a list that we can access of the incentives for senior housing?
We certainly can. We don't have a list right now, but
Does that, I'm just saying, does that list exist, or are we anticipating incentives that the state provides, or is this?
we'd have to come up with them.
So these would be incentives that the city
Mhm.
would develop
Yeah.
to incentivize
Mhm.
senior housing. Oh,
Mhm.
that's a great idea.
So we had Councillor Cotton. Did you have an-
I was gonna address the same issue, like, can we put those two together or just add in with the?
Okay, and same with Councillor
Ex-
Washington.
Yep, I saw the same thing that
Okay,
esteemed colleagues saw.
Councillor Johnson.
So in that case, it does sound like
Two.
they are slightly different things. I do see the nuance for sure. It might get a little bit long to fit in the other incentivizing thing, it ends up being like 4 sentences long. So it could just maybe be reworded with F to say, consider incentives to allow more senior housing in the city where appropriate. And that, it seems to me, would be a different thing. And also, it shouldn't say existing incentives if we don't have them. It should say, consider incentives.
Sound
So
good?
it,
Councillor Benson.
it says with existing, consider allowing more senior housing in the city where appropriate with existing incentives, but those incentives don't yet exist. Those would be incentives that we would come up with.
Yeah, through the implementation of this.
Okay.
All right. Great. And G.
G, support the development of rental apartments in locations that encourage a healthy lifestyle and are appropriate for families with children, including the provisions of services, recreation, and other amenities.
All right. Right. Councillor Benson.
This is not making I just want to make sure I'm reading this right. We're not making a value statement about the existing rental apartment developments being in unhealthy locations for, are we?
No, it's just saying. Support.
You're just emphasizing that we want them to,
Yeah, if we're gonna have rental apartments that provide a healthy lifestyle, allow people
Not
to
gonna
go
build them.
access parks and grocery stores.
Councillor Watton and Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. Could we change support the development to increase the number of rental apartments as being more aspirational, because we have no control over the existing stock. It could be turned into condos.
But support the development of rental. So would that be the same as increasing?
No,
Because it doesn't say existing.
no, it would be increase the number of rental apartments. And it would be implied that we don't want the housing stock to shrink. We want to increase the types of housing. And one thing that we have a kind of a need for, and that's the number of rental apartments. Again, it's aspirational.
Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, about the issue of, are we suggesting that some farms aren't or are whatever, in a good place in the city or not. What I'm thinking in my mind is that when I look at the available land in our city, whether it's actually available to us or not, there are lots that are not developed, whether we can develop them or not, that are close to the freeway. And shoving a bunch of housing next to the freeway is something that has been done historically in other places. And that leads to all kinds of issues, especially for kids with asthma and that sort of thing. So it's, I think, just specifically saying that if we're going to have new ones, let's make sure that we're having those kinds of considerations.
Councillor Benson.
totally agree. But to Councilman Watton's point, I would disagree with that rewording. I don't think, as far as this body is concerned, we don't increase the amount of housing, period. We support the development, we encourage it, but we don't build anything. If we're going to get any of this housing that we're hoping for, it's going to be through through whatever support we can give. A lot of that has been hamstrung by us not having enough tools to do that. We're not provided with, we're provided with plenty of mandates to do it from the state, but not nearly enough tools to execute it. To the extent that we can, I say absolutely, let's support it, but we're not gonna increase the amount of affordable housing. That's gonna take developers to do. That's gonna take citizens building ADUs to do. And to the extent that we can support that development, that's what we can do. How do we go about increasing the amount other than by support? I'm actually hoping you have an answer to that.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
But I think it's in part, kind of, it's like, we should be encouraging, and we can encourage code support, similar to what we did with the mill site of, hey, if you include a mix of affordable housing, there are some tax incentives. And we can do those kind of things to do. I'm still struggling with this bullet because I'm not sure what it means overall. Go on.
Well, but as part of the mill site, we also included a park. That's kind of how it calls it out, that need amenities for children. So we added that as well. Councilor Benson.
And with regard to the mill site, we to the extent that there's any affordable housing built there, we aren't building it. It's
Right.
going to be
Oh,
built by
totally.
the developer. We supported as much as we could. I think one of the things that we learned on that was that we are armed with nowhere near the tools that we need to sufficiently support and encourage the development of affordable housing. One of the things that we discovered through that whole process was that the amount of affordable housing that we can in any way help developers develop is insufficient. It doesn't come close to meeting the numbers that are getting sent to us by the state. And it's not because we don't want to encourage and support the affordable housing. It's because we haven't been given enough arrows in our quiver to handle the problem.
Councilor Christensen, did you have your hand up?
No.
So we change the wording or do we leave it as it is? Mr. Johnson?
I wonder if we would kind of find a compromise by saying support the development of additional rental apartments. If that would kind of cover the bases.
Well, any
Councilor Benson?
any development that we support is going to be additional, right? We're certainly not, I think we're all agreed that we're not supporting subtractional development of rental apartments.
Okay, Councilor Johnson.
I'm fine with leaving it as is.
And head nods. Right, okay. Moving on to the next.
All right, to number 2, maintain a sufficient amount of quality, affordable housing with healthy living environments. A, work towards meeting the countywide planning policies for moderate, low, very low, and extremely low income housing, and for emergency housing, emergency shelters, and permanent supportive housing. B, work with the community to plan for, create, and retain affordable housing. C, apply for housing funds available to assist in the development or improvement of affordable housing. D, to the maximum extent feasible, require affordable housing to be provided in new mixed-use, planned residential, and innovative development district projects that include a mix of rental and owner-occupied units that are made available to people with low, very low, and extremely low incomes.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway and then Councilor Washington.
To the, yeah, it's the words to the maximum extent means 100%. And I don't believe that's probably feasible. Sorry to say. So I guess I'd recommend we go back to encourage and support, as we
Mhm.
did in other ones,
Mhm.
affordable housing be provided in all mixed use. I do question when we go extremely low income that we, as a outer community, really have the services to support them. Nor, you pay a premium in gas, food, everything to live out here, that we really do them a service to bring them out here where everything's more expensive. Sad to say. So caution on that one, but to the maximum extent possible is 100%. And I don't believe that's what we're after. It should be
Encourage and support.
Councilor Washington.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big part of it. It's just, do we have the services that we would need to have in place? The other piece is with low, very low, and extremely low incomes, is there a definition for low, very low, and extremely low?
Yes. Extremely low is defined in RCW 3670A030, means a single person, family, or unrelated persons living together whose adjusted income is at or below 30% of the median household income adjusted for household size for the county where the household is located, as reported by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Councilor
you.
Christensen.
My concern was similar to Councilmember Holloway's, just in terms of making sure that as we are encouraging it, that we have services available, so we don't set folks up to fail. Right. There's a way to tweak that to make sure that.
And we can't provide permits for development that have no services. So if we can't issue a water and sewer certificate availability, we can't move forward with any kind of permit review, and let alone a permit for development.
I think it's more like human services.
Yeah.
is what
Oh.
it is. Yeah.
Transportation.
I'm thinking
Oh,
in terms
that-
of
Transportation, the
Right.
ability to
Yeah.
purchase food, things like that.
Councilor Cotton.
Yes, to answer part of this question, we do already have this in place. The extremely low housing block from my house, Pickering Court, that is something that's available, and King County Housing Authority is who manages this, and they also, come out regularly and are checking in with clients, and they have to meet certain, criteria, and they provide all the support services for that. So yes, we do already have it.
Is
So-
there transportation involved?
Snoqualmie Valley
Okay.
Transportation
yeah.
is available for that, the little bus.
Mhm.
And also the Housing Authority does, have some programs as far as, well, and they can use Metro Bus too, as far as a lot of people use that for going to appointments and grocery shopping and things like that, so.
Councilor Watton.
Yeah, and my concern reflects what has already been said, and that is we are given a set of expectations through Department of Commerce, onto King County, onto the Puget Sound Regional Council, but it doesn't, what we really should focus on is meeting the needs of our existing community. And when I know of people that have lost their housing because they are at that 30% AMI, I am very concerned. But it doesn't mean that we need to absorb the rest of the county's needs in that. If and I'd like to see the wording more reflect that we are meeting the needs of our existing community. And these artificial numbers we're being given by Puget Sound Regional Council, by King County, by the Department of Commerce are unrealistic. And we do have some concerns about wraparound services. And you know, we've got a case of 30 apartments with 400 service calls a year. We can't replicate that time and time again. It's just not sustainable. Transportation's another issue, that we don't have the services to get people where they need to be, where we do have a huge need. And how do we address it? I don't know. But 80% of our employment base, 10,000 people, 80% don't live in our community and they can't afford to. So, you know, and they tend to fall in that 50 to 80%. So, you know, I think this is our one chance to tell the state, you know, we understand we're all in on affordable housing, but it has to be appropriate for our community. And in order for us to absorb more, we need more supportive services. And that includes more on the transportation side so that people that have jobs here can get to the jobs without having to depend on a car. So I guess the piece that I'm struggling with is when we call out what the state has called out, the low, very low and extremely low incomes, it really, we need to address things that are appropriate for our community without putting stresses and quite frankly, you know, disrupting our social net here. And we're seeing some fraying of that. And it's, you know, this is setting the tone for next 20 years. And, you know, at some point we have to push back against the state and say, you know what, these are unrealistic numbers. We know that already. And how can we right size it? And that's what we need to do, is right size it. We're all in on affordable housing. It's just, we need to make sure that we're being mindful that we're taking care of our citizens first and our employers first. So that's, you know, and I guess if we can kind of compact that all into this, we'll be spot on.
So I heard you say meeting the needs of our existing
Our
community, it somewhere in
residents.
D, and take something out of D to make sure that fits.
Yeah, existing residents and local employment base,
And business community,
business. community
residential
support.
business
Yeah,
communities.
there you go.
That might be a letter all by itself.
Counselor Vincent?
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that for D, if we just struck the word maximum, then maybe it works to, and just said to the extent feasible.
Support and encourage.
To the extent feasible, encourage and support, or just to the extent feasible, require?
I don't have an opinion on encourage and support. I think we're saying encourage and support a lot. We can say it as much as we want. You know, I don't think you can overuse those. That's the whole idea of this.
Counselor Christensen?
I think I'd rather strike the maximum and leave it to the extent feasible require affordable housing, because I think that if we're just talking about supporting and then adding and then going into the require affordable housing, it gets a little bit unclear.
To the extent feasible, require affordable housing, and then add in the words meeting the needs of our existing residents and business community.
Residential and commercial communities.
Residential,
The people who live here as well as the employers who live here, so
Yeah.
residential and business community.
Right.
I feel like that could be a letter by itself. That's a really important point that Councilman Watton made. If we had a point that addressed that directly.
Counselor Johnson.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it is an important point. I just don't think it belongs in D. I think it just needs to be a different spot down below to just say that we would to
Support
wherever
and
extent
encourage.
maximally feasible, encourage us to have the services for our existing residents as well. It shouldn't just be about new residents. Our housing policy should address current residents as well.
Just in the future.
Yeah. I did want to just say though, of course, that in supporting our business community, we need more housing that's in, especially that I don't want to put an exact number on, but something in the range of 50 to like 120% AMI. 120% AMI for King County is not, you'd have a hard time in Snoqualmie, even at 120 AMI. I'll put it that way. So yeah, that would be supporting our business community is having increased housing so that they don't have to deal with folks commuting over 18, which may or may not get done. We'll see.
Right.
Oh, one other thing, Mayor,
Yes, Counselor Johnson.
was we also did, I don't want to necessarily say push back. It's more that we shared the city's view on what is feasible for affordable housing by requesting that the number be changed from 1,500 to 719. So we are doing that work of trying to get to something that is realistic.
Right.
So did I hear you correctly that you would like to see a new policy added?
I think so. I think that would make more sense than trying to cram it into E.
And could you just rephrase that, what that policy would sound like?
Councilmember Watton said.
Everything count.
Just go back in the tape.
Yeah.
Meeting the needs of our existing and future residential and business community.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah. That sounds good.
And that, so we're providing new affordable housing that meets the needs,
Housing and services.
housing and services.
Social services.
Social services.
Social services,
We
So
gotta
then-
have the water.
and transportation,
So then keep D
transportation.
where we have the to the extent feasible. And just keep this sentence as it is. 'Cause we might be able to do it, we might not be able to do it, right? Right. Okay.
Okay. E. Offer strategies and mechanisms such as density bonuses and, where allowed by law, tax waivers and relief from development fees to encourage low, very low, and extremely low housing development. F, utilize community land trust as a tool for addressing the community's affordable housing needs. Consider offering favorable ground lease terms on city-owned land to CLTs.
Counselor Christensen.
Should this be consider utilizing community land trusts? Since this is supposed to be aspirational.
So put consider in front of it.
Yeah, consider utilizing.
G, continue to support low-income housing with exempt impact fees for development types. For example, ADUs, transitional housing facilities, shelters for temporary placement, community residential facilities, senior housing, and tiny homes.
Oh, there it is. Okay. It's like really tiny.
The only time you can't see it.
So with this part of the legislation last year for the exempt impact fees? Does anyone recall? Or is it just a city choice?
It's a city choice. So it says continue to support. So we do have some already in place, like for ADUs.
Councilor Cotton?
And this may be back at F or E, I'm not sure which, but, and as a newcomer to the council, is there a map of city-owned land? Do we have something which shows what all the city owns marked out on it, so we know? I haven't seen it, that's why I'm asking if it's available.
We don't have one just like that I could pull, you know, right now, but we could create one that would show what property the city owns.
We do have some buildable lands.
Yeah, we have
lands.
buildable lands too. Yeah, if you just want to know what land does the city own, what land is buildable, what the city owns, what is.
That's probably what, if relating to this,
Yeah.
more relevant is what's potential buildable city-owned land. but-
Not much.
I know, that's why I'm
Nothing.
like, so
Councilor
how
Cotton.
much is there that we're talking about doing?
I
all
think
this?
we're thinking about parcel 9033 off the Parkway, which is,
Oh.
yeah, next at the end, the terminus of the Habitat for Humanity,
Okay.
Urbanstein
I think
Drive.
there's other lots as well. Councilor Watton?
Yeah, to Councilmember Cotton's question, Enterprise, it's a national nonprofit contracted with, or King County contracted with them at about 2018 and did an inventory across King County. So if you go on Enterprise, I believe that that's still available. That will show open spaces, space that the city owns, and which tax parcels.
Thank you.
Okay, H, consider recommendations from the Snoqualmie Valley Housing Task Force to further promote affordable housing. I support the
Make that?
I support the local workforce, educational employees, first responders, retail clerks, casino employees with housing. J,
Councilor Christensen?
I was just a little surprised to see casino employees called out specifically in with the group with the educational employees, first responders and retail clerks. Can anyone speak to that a little bit more? Since
So the tribe, Snoqualmie tribe reviewed this. Is that some of their additional wording?
Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Johnson?
I mean, apart from the casino proper, are there other, types of businesses that they run in the area that they might want to include? Because it could just be something more like tribal employees or something similar to that. That's more general, including something like the Salish Lodge and the new hotel. That's not just literally the casino.
say service industry.
Well, food, yeah, service industry or food and
Reference from
hospitality.
Holloway?
What about the pawn shop?
You're gonna start that? I really wanted to get home for the snow freezing. You're gonna start that up.
I think service industry is a good
Service industry.
good substitute.
It's a service.
and that would be more inclusive. of the other
Or is it
businesses that we
retail?
have as well.
It's retail.
I agree.
But service.
It's a service.
Retail.
J, cooperate with other government entities, nonprofit housing organizations, and housing developers to research and develop alternative means for keeping affordable housing so that units do not immediately appreciate beyond the reach of applicable housing levels. should say applicable income levels.
Counselor Benson.
I'm sorry, going back to I, is that not an opportunity to highlight what Councilman Watton was talking about earlier? About supporting, maybe being more specific about supporting local Snoqualmie workforce. I certainly wouldn't begrudge anybody working in North Bend housing or Fall City or anything like that. But to Councilman Watton's point, we do have a duty to advocate for folks that are in Snoqualmie. And I might be a place where we can highlight that.
I think, we were going to add that the additional meet housing needs for our community and business communities. So residents and business community, that perhaps maybe we should just put it in I, because that takes care of,
Put an I, okay.
don't you think? Kind of combining it. Counselor Johnson,
Yeah, I would agree with that. The one that we were going to add, I think it can fit an I.
I think.
Well, it sounds like the ayes have it.
Goes to that.
Great. Number 3.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
I struggle when we singular. We go singular. So in H, the affordable housing is an important activity going on. We should we should listen to the recommendations and proceed. But if somebody else wants to come forward with something other, so I guess and other non-governmental organizations, if somebody wants to give us a suggestion on affordable housing, I'm more than willing to listen. That was my only one, just.
It doesn't have to be
And other
non-
NGOs.
You said non-governmental, it doesn't have to be non-governmental, it'd just be,
Other entities?
yeah, another entity might convert. What'd you say?
Groups, individuals.
Whatever you want. It's just,
Yeah, I get it.
you could put, or
Experts?
anyone. Anyone, anything, anytime, come talk to us.
Right,
Please.
Yeah, please. So
sounds
just
good.
take that and
Wordsmith it.
work with it. Your choice of words, I think you got what the intent was.
Great. Okay, see if we can get through the last one. 3. Support sustainable housing design through construction, regulations, education, and partnerships. A. Support the use of high quality, durable, and low maintenance building materials, high efficiency energy systems, and environmentally responsible building principles in all new housing and renovation projects to reduce housing operation and maintenance costs, energy use, and impact on natural resources.
Counselor Martin,
I think in the title, we just strike the word education and just keep it to regulations and partnerships. And because really, we're not in the business of education here. And the other one that we may want to consider adding in would be something around green building practices. Just as a kind of a recognition that we're supporting the idea of having to lessen our carbon footprint.
Counselor
Yeah, the air
Johnson,
conditioners later.
I think we should educate the public to some degree. I think that is one of the things that would be beneficial to us. For example, with water use, one of the things we can do is, if your rates are really high, just have a little flag at the bottom that says, check if you have leaky pipes. just anything like that. They can help people better understand what they can do to lessen their impact on resource use and also can help out their monthly bills.
We're just not using. the word
Send out a mailer about what kinds of things can be recycled, what can't, since waste management doesn't always do it, and about insulating your house. Just a little flyer that goes out maybe once a year that says, hey, here are some things that can help you winterize that will reduce your heat bill because you're not going to turn on the heater as much, etc. So I'm fine with having education in there.
City Administrator Chambliss?
New reality, folks, we need to add fire resistant materials in there too. RCW 1927-560.
Councilor Christensen?
I would also vote to keep education in there, for the reasons that, Councilmember Johnson said, and also because sections B and D B and E specifically cite to promoting and raising public awareness of the available tax incentives and things that the average person may not be aware of. And then promoting the awareness of green housing renovation options and energy conservation that again can lower the cost of daily housing expenses. If you're talking about the average homeowner who's going through and is planning to do a reno, trying to save money and be more energy efficient, or knowing where they could get a tax break would be really helpful. And to have the city send that out on blast, we have an excellent communications group that can do it. So I'd be in favor of leaving that.
We already do all the emergency preparedness.
Absolutely.
Manners.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway?
All right, at least in that first sub-bullet, there needs to be lifetime, there's nothing in there about the initial cost of the structure. I can have 100-year roof on my house. I can't afford it up front. And if we're talking affordable housing, you're gonna have to make some decisions of, I can, again, put a 50-year roof on a new apartment dwelling, or I can put a 20-year roof and at least make the initial costs come down, taking consideration the lifetime cost of that decision I made. Okay. So there needs to be something in there about lifetime costs or initial costs. It needs to be balanced. I can't force everybody to put R25 in their houses if it makes them unaffordable. I don't know if 25 is a good number or not. Yeah, I think it's like R8 or whatever. Anyway.
So some type of balance.
It's just not the maintenance and operation cost, it's the lifetime cost of the building. And you got to balance that initial cost with what maintenance you need to do over time.
Okay, probably need one more comment, and then we actually need to jump over to our Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, I do agree. I actually wonder if that should be a separate thing, in part because A is already really long, and putting in another clause about balanced with this and that. We could say that we still want to support all of these things, and there's a separate point, say balance the quality and such with the costs.
Or just take maintenance operation, and put lifetime costs in there. I'll save you a word.
Okay. It works for me.
Cost of ownership.
I think we should also do what Director Chambliss or
Yeah.
City Administrator Chambliss was saying, and
Right.
not have fire traps built.
Okay. All right.
Oh.
Stories of lives.
So we need to adjourn this, so we'll update this for next time. And we'll move it to the council meeting, and then if there's any additional changes you want to make, we will do that. So thank you for your hardness. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
So it's been moved by Councilor Watton and seconded by Councilor Washington, right? So we are adjourned. Right. Okay, good evening, council. This brings us to our regular meeting of the city council. Time is now 7:03 PM and we just completed our roundtable regarding comprehensive plan, the housing element. So council, would you please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilor Cotton, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Brings us to our first item, regular business, is to approve the agenda. Council may have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved?
Second.
Moved by Councilor Watton, second by Councilor Johnson. Council, do you have any questions or changes? Seeing,
I'll do something. I can't remember. Never mind. If I can't remember, we'll catch you later.
okay. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? So it passes and the agenda is approved. Next item is reappointments of the Human Services Advisory Committee and also Parks and Events Commission. So the purpose of this agenda bill is to reappoint Mandeep Walia, Sarah Weisel, and Jennifer Bragg to the Human Services Advisory and Scott Vermillion to the Parks and Events Commission. Mandeep Walia was appointed to the Human Services Advisory Committee in 2023, and Sarah and Jennifer were appointed in 2022. The Human Services Advisory Committee meets approximately 3 to 4 times per year to make recommendations for human services funding. Scott Vermillion was appointed to the Parks and Events Commission in 2023, finishing a term for the vacated position. These individuals wish to continue to serve and agree to the appointment. May I have a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Benson, second by Councilor Washington. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? And it's unanimous. We really appreciate each one of them stepping up to serve. And I'm not seeing anyone that was appointed here online or in the chambers. So if you want to see them, thank them for their service, please. Right. Next item is proclamation. So Resilience Month proclamation. March 2024 marks the 5th year that the City of Snoqualmie and Empower Youth Network have teamed up to proclaim March Resilience Month in the Snoqualmie community, encouraging everyone to work towards a community of hope and healing. Oops. Whereas the City of Snoqualmie recognizes the importance of a community conversant in adverse childhood experiences called ACEs, the effect of ACEs, trauma and toxic stress on the developing brain, and how resilience building strategies buffer these predicted negative impacts. And whereas the cumulative effects of such experiences over a lifespan, if ignored, are detrimental to individuals, families, and communities. And whereas newest Washington State research suggests that building community resilience by increasing the opportunities for mutual support, hope, help, and healing, and ways to feel safe and connected within all our neighborhoods and community is beneficial. And whereas promoting community engagement to learn more about ACEs linked to chronic physical and mental health challenges is noted by the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, and to learn how to interrupt the impact of ACEs by learning about and applying protective factors and resilience throughout our partners and agencies, schools, and families. Now, therefore, I, Catherine Ross, Mayor of Snoqualmie, do hereby recognize the importance of the coalition of work of Valley Resilient and many of the organizations, which you can actually read online, working together toward a community of hope and healing, and proclaim March 2024 as Resilience Month. At this time, wait, actually, is there anyone from Empower Youth Network? No? Okay, no one is here. Okay. At this time, we'll provide time for residents to comment on items not on the agenda. First, a few ground rules. Residents who are not present have a right to have their elected representatives perform their duties on behalf of the city in efficient, orderly manner. Therefore, comments limited to 3 minutes. Please wait to be recognized and state your name and city of residence. Director comments to the council as a whole and not to individual members. Please notify that this is not a time to ask questions of the council, mayor, or staff, or to engage in debate. Public comments during this portion of the meeting shall be limited to topics concerning current, future, or requested city projects, actions, programs, plans, and regulations. Comments not pertaining to these subject matters are not germane and may result in your comments being suspended. And last, please respect the decorum of these proceedings, as all due respect will be afforded to you. So with that, is there anyone that wishes to speak to any concern that is not on the agenda this evening? So please raise your hand. I'm not seeing anyone in City Hall raise their hand, nor online. Right. So therefore, our public comment is now closed. Consent agenda. The consent agenda contains the approval of the city council meeting minutes dated February 12th, 2024, and approve the claims approval report dated February 26th, 2024. May I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Johnson, second by Councilor Christensen. Is there any public comment regarding these items? Seeing none. Councilor, is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? And the consent agenda is approved. Ordinances. So tonight's first ordinance is AB 24-025, proposed amendment to SMC Title 15, Building and Construction, Chapter 15.04A and 15.04B. This is the first reading of ordinance 1289. And who chaired it last? Councilor Washington, would you please read the introduction?
Make it smaller.
Make it larger, bifocals. Okay, so the proposed ordinance amends Snoqualmie Municipal Code chapters 15.04A and 15.04B and adopts by reference the 2021 International and Uniform Codes as adopted and amended by the State Building Code Council. Scroll down here. So proposed action, discussion only. This is a first reading. A second reading and recommended adoption of the ordinance 1289 is scheduled on March 11th, 2024.
Great, thank you. Is there any public comment regarding this item? Seeing none. Council, I'd like to invite our Community Development Director, Emily Artecha, to provide an overview.
Hello, council members. Good evening. Emily Arteche, Community Development Director. In the agenda bill regarding this item, you will see under analysis that there is a bullet list of everything that's being updated. One of the very new or different, maybe even controversial areas is the energy code. And if you had a chance to look at the attachment, what is it called?
Maybe even the city of
The
Duval.
City of Duval Informational Building Code Update presentation, you'd see some nitty gritty information about what is exactly changing in the energy code, but it's kind of fascinating. You know, there's new, all kinds of new information about all of these updates. But in general, this is a routine update from the state of Washington. We do this every 3 years. We're going from a 2018 version to a 2021. And it impacts all of these bullet items: the International Building Code, the International Residential Code, the International Mechanical Code, the International Fire Code, the Wildland Urban Interface Code, the Plumbing Code, the State of Washington Energy Code, which you just mentioned, and the National Electric Code.
Counselor, did you want to see the Duval presentation or? Counselor Watton?
Mayor, I found the attachments and the update rather dry, but the presentation is
Exceptionally good,
remarkable.
exceptionally good. We don't need to give a round of a hand to the building official at Duval. Yeah, he used a lot of very bright colors.
So should we bring it up?
He's excited about this update where it would be hard to get excited about it without the presentation.
Yeah, can we go through it real quick?
Sure,
What was that?
he wants to go through the presentation.
Okay, sure. We'll have you narrate.
All right. Well, let's just keep scrolling.
Mayor,
Counselor Benson?
is there anything that you know right off the bat is going to impact Snoqualmie citizens more than anything else? I think you mentioned energy.
I just thought the energy was interesting. Washington's first energy code was adopted in 1977 by statute.
That is
It was
interesting.
voluntary requirement. You know, the State of Washington Code Act and Energy Code were passed in the legislature in '85. The state building code gave rulemaking authority to the SBCC, which oversees all the building and energy codes within the state. And then, you know, you could just scroll through on page 31, you know, just kind of fun facts. I mean, gives you information about Governor Inslee brought together a bipartisan group to develop plans for the state to meet its greenhouse gas emission targets. So that's why some of these things are happening. And you'll see this replicated even at, you know, other parts of the state and filtering down to the local level. For example, the climate change element now is a required element of the comprehensive plan. And now you see this new energy code replicating similar areas. One of you mentioned about the R values. Well, now, you know, you can see that the R values are increasing from 49 to 60. So, you know, kind of funny that you just brought that up. Slab depth increases from 2 to 4.
But it does become more expensive if you're building something
Yeah,
or probably remodeling, depending on.
yeah. Another interesting fact, total energy credits have been reduced in dwelling units by 1 credit. And additions under 150 square feet don't require energy credits. Additions between 150 and 500 require 2 credits. So just, I mean, this person really knew this code, the ins and outs quite well. So they do have impacts to our development, but we aren't in the middle of a building boom like North Bend is or Duval. So likely impact us less.
City Administrator Chambliss?
So the building codes are the international building code. They're universal across the United States. They go through a update process just like most regulations. This is the latest update. Normally what changes is energy efficiency, seismic, and ADA regulations. If you're in a restroom, you see a whole bunch of holes around a toilet paper dispenser or a paper towel dispenser, those are people that are keeping up with the latest code about how high off the ground or where it has to be, and they're moving it all around. So there's nothing really targeted towards the community. It's just the next iteration of the building codes that affect everyone. And it's important to note that puzzle rooms are now declared amusement devices. And so they no
Well, it's
longer-
about time,
They no longer.
quite
have to-
frankly.
They no longer have to comply with exiting requirements.
I was stuck in that Alice in Wonderland thing for an hour.
Yeah.
Thank you,
What
Mike.
that tells me, as somebody who actually knows the building code, don't go to one. Because they don't have
They
to,
really do lock you in.
because they really do lock you, and they don't have to follow exiting requirements. So anyway,
They don't know.
Yeah, puzzle room is a special
Corn mazes are the same way.
amusement area in which occupants are encouraged to solve the challenge to escape.
So,
So
well,
a fire would just be an added challenge.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway?
I need to understand, it's non-material. I don't know that we have any puzzle rooms. But it does bring up a point. Are you saying that with this code and identifying them as amusement, there are certain safety regulations they no longer have to comply with?
Correct, but that classification's been in the code for at least 20 years. And that's what places, amusement parks, et cetera, use to waive like the double opening doors with panic hardware regulations on the haunted house. So I just saw that they've now declared those as amusement.
Yeah, but there is opportunity. We shouldn't do anything less than what is presented here. We may do more. We shouldn't do anything less without real serious thought.
Yep.
And that, I don't think puzzle room's an issue for us, but that just highlights the point. We could do something that says, well, in addition, in Snoqualmie, you're going to comply with these codes for puzzle rooms, but I don't think we need to go there.
Correct. I would handle that through the normal building permit process.
Yeah.
If we have a public puzzle room application, we can approach it from that right.
Anyway, I'd encourage you to look at the presentation. It is fun and full of interesting, colorful slides.
Any other comments regarding this? It has to be passed by March 15th.
Yeah.
And so we will have a second reading in March 11th. All right. Thank you. Ordinance amending SMC chapters 5.04 and 5.08 regarding business licenses and business and occupation tax. Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, would you please read the introduction and motion?
All right. The intent of this agenda bill is to amend the SMC code, chapters 504 and 508 to reflect the latest Association of Washington Cities model ordinance regarding business and occupation taxes. The model ordinance was revised in 2019 and 2023 to reflect the changes in state law to promote uniformity and foster an equitable business environment. Wow, we're really putting words in there. We already did first reading last week. So move to adopt ordinance number 1288, amending SMC chapters 504, 508 regarding business and business and occupation tax, and set forth adoption at today's city council meeting. I
Second.
did some ad-libbing there, sorry.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
May I have a second?
Second.
Second. So moved by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway, second by Councilor Christensen.
I think you said second. Yeah.
Yes. Any public comment regarding this item? Seeing none. We do have our Finance Director Drew Boutte online and our City Attorney David Linehan. You can answer any questions. Or do you went further, Councilor Johnson?
I feel like I'm sort of in the habit recently of doing this. Just to clarify for the public, in the past, we have talked about adopting changes to our B&O taxes that would increase revenues to the city. This is not that. This is basically conforming our city code to the state to make sure that we are in line with how we're supposed to be doing things.
Right. Thank you. Councilor Benson.
To that point, though, I would love to hear from Mr. Boutte about what effect this is going to have on our businesses and their taxation.
So thank you very much for that question, Councilmember Benson. This will have some relatively minimal changes overall on the basic tax picture for a lot of our businesses here in Snoqualmie itself. So the major change overall, and this, by the way, is mandatory, especially the 2019 change overall. The goal at that time was for every city with the B&O tax to actually update their B&O tax code to reflect the model ordinance that was adopted or approved back then in 2019. So this is a mandatory change itself. The 2023 update itself is a technical update for the most part. It isn't necessarily mandatory, but it is recommended. In terms of the major change itself, it relates to service income apportionment. So any sort of service business that we have here in Snoqualmie, and I'm going to share my screen with everyone here. Just one second. I'm going to bring up just a very basic slide. So how do we calculate the B&O tax for a service business within Snoqualmie? We basically take their service gross income to figure out how much we would apportion to Snoqualmie.
Hey,
There's a
Drew,
payroll factor. Yes.
We're not,
you
we're not
look
seeing your slide.
fabulous. But
Okay.
Whatever you're looking at, we can't see. You do look fabulous, though.
Well, thank you. So hopefully now I'm sharing my screen. That is the email right there. So
Okay.
anyway, just a very basic slide here. So how do we apportion income overall when it comes to service businesses? There's a payroll factor involved as well as a service income factor, and that is divided by 2. The service income factor is equal to the service income generated within the city. How much of their service income or that income that that service business generates, how much of that can we apportion to the city? And the previous way that they would calculate that is that they would divide that by the service income that is generated everywhere. So if you derive, say, 50% of your service income from the city of Snoqualmie, that would be multiplied against your gross receipts, basically, and that's how much you can apportion to the city of Snoqualmie for us to then apply our B&O tax rate against. What the state legislature did basically is they said, well, we can't really define service income as everywhere anymore. So what they've decided to do back then is they wanted to subtract for if you conduct some business and some of that business is performed in the city, but if it's also income that is generated in an area within the US or a foreign country in which the taxpayer is not taxable, they wanted to subtract that out of that service income everywhere. So in instance, the denominator prior to 2019 would probably be slightly more overall than what would take place after 2019, primarily because we're subtracting for this really obscure, right, scenario where some of the service is performed in Snoqualmie, but some of the income may also be attributable to a city or an area that doesn't have a B&O tax, and therefore it should be subtracted from the service income denominator basically here in order to derive what that service income factor is, which then flows all the way up to figure out what is the gross income on that business that we can actually tax. So it probably, slightly benefits the city overall, but probably significantly from my point of view. The 2023 change itself relates to the publishing industry and how much they're exempted primarily from B&O taxes overall. They had a partial exemption on their gross receipts back then, but that has increased that exemption overall. And that's a part of the technical update basically is we've got to reflect state law. And that's what we're proposing as a part of this B&O tax ordinance itself. A lot of this is housekeeping as well in terms of definitions, technical corrections as well from model ordinances in the past. And so all that is filtering through this ordinance that you have in front of you. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Councilor Benson.
Yeah, just a follow-up. Is this going to create a paperwork headache for our businesses though, or they gotta keep track of where they generated each receipt and keep track of what was done in Snoqualmie and what was done elsewhere? Is that?
Isn't that how they do business?
They do, yeah.
Well, they have to anyway.
They're already doing that. That's not going to be a new
Right.
headache. That's just the headaches they already have. Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, the ordinance passes. So moving on to committee reports. Is there any report from Public Safety Committee?
Nothing further to report right now.
Thank you. Community development, so we have draft land use element and community development. Let's see, Community Development Director Emily Artecha will present and introduce this item. This is something we reviewed 2 weeks ago at the council meeting, and we have now the red lines that we will run through. But I guess, is Is there any, first of all, any public comment regarding this item? No one's on. Okay. So no, there's not. So Community Development, Artecha, would you please run through the red lines for us? I guess we will need to, Councilor Washington, to read in the summary in motion, please.
Okay, so the introduction.
Yes.
The draft land use element was the first of 6 comprehensive elements to be reviewed by the city council as part of the comprehensive plan periodic review update 2044. The council has expressed a desire to acknowledge the draft work completed to date as part of an ongoing review process. Scroll down here. Okay, proposed action. Move to accept council roundtable edits on the draft land use element goal and policy shown in Exhibit 1 as part of an ongoing review of the city comprehensive plan periodic review update 2044, subject to integration and harmonization, or your words, with the other comprehensive plan elements under review.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Washington, second by Mayor Pro Tem Holloway. So,
It was a packed statement.
Yeah.
yes, it was.
Very good.
It's a reading.
So we need to show the red lines.
Did you bring those up, Nina? Please, or no? I can bring them up. There you go. Okay, good. All right, so council members, you can see that the changes are in strikeout and underline, obviously in red. Happy to walk through these one by one, if that would be helpful.
Did that, right?
Maintain Snoqualmie's unique character and attractiveness with new development that complements the existing built and natural environment and allows tourism and commerce to thrive. I see that there's an A in there.
Makes more sense.
Yeah, allows
Yeah.
tourism.
Councilor Benson?
We went through this already, right? Do
Yeah.
we
These
do we
are
need to go
edits.
through it again or?
That's
um,
up to you. We're just
We're
kind of
just
going
walking
through
through the,
your changes
yeah,
that you
the
made.
edits. We're just walking through the edits.
Councilor Washington?
My understanding is we're just walking through the changes.
Yeah,
Correct.
Right, I'm just wondering if that's a redundant exercise since we already went through. We made these changes, we made these changes.
Mm.
And I trust Ms. Artecha to accurately reflect them. You know, I didn't have a problem with the changes that we made when we made them.
Okay, Councilor Johnson?
Want to be very careful how I phrase this. It's not that I don't trust Director Artecha, it's that I don't trust anyone. So I would like to just make sure that we've crossed all of our i's and dotted all of our t's.
oh, that's helpful.
Out.
Yeah,
Cross them out.
yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway?
Well, and I propose we quickly go through this, such as, anybody got any objection with 1? If there's no objections, let's move to 2. And just go high number down, right down the list. If we can give us an opportunity to read it, and then we can just say, move on.
Okay,
I
yeah,
like it.
go for it.
I think 1's okay. Anybody objection to 1? Can we pull up number 2? Give us a minute. Anybody any objection or comments on number 2?
Some of us don't read as fast as you, Brent.
One way to view this, if it's black, pretty well already agreed to it in the last review.
Red, it's new.
If it's red, she was trying to interpret what we said, and now she's just asking us, did I get it right?
So it sounds like no changes in two. Three, moving on, oh. Counselor One,
3B,
I'm moving on to three.
We're on 3.
I thought so.
Yeah.
3B. That third line of B, I think we asked a word, including consideration of public transit, something other community goals. Or maybe we didn't strike enough.
Probably need to and.
We probably need the and.
Probably need the and back
Okay.
and other community.
Okay, and other community.
Yeah, that change was just to get rid of the t'other. I remember that discussion.
Oh,
Just get rid of
the
the
t'other, yeah, just the t'other.
Also in that one, we struck a comma after public water that I think needs to be re-included.
Public water, sewer, and transportation network that you're talking about.
Uh-huh.
So strike or add.
There is a comma that is struck through after public water that I think
Oh,
needs to be there.
Excellent.
Oh, I
vision.
see.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, the comma.
I thought it was just under.
No, it's.
No, that's
struck there.
underlined as an
Yeah.
addition, that you got your comment.
That's an
Oh,
underlined comma.
okay.
That's not a struck through comma.
Okay, so it's good.
Next one is
The
struck.
next one is struck and I don't think it should though.
Oh. See,
That's a
amazing
grammar
vision.
question that you answered.
I'll see your comment and raise you another one.
Wait, if that comma is underlined and not struck, where's the struck comma?
I'll make sure the
After sewer.
commas get
After
put
sewer.
in. I'll make sure the commas get put
Oh,
in.
that one after
Thank
sewer
you.
is struck?
Yeah.
We will do a
Oh, that's
grammatic,
unacceptable. We will be
Okay.
using the Oxford comma.
we will do a
You're not
grammatical check.
savages.
Counselor Benson? Thank you. We will check.
Going to 5.
So number 4, there were no changes.
Number 5.
Then number 5. Counselor Johnson?
I'm struggling with the wording on D. It's like, I know we talked about Snoqualmie River Trail. It's like just kind of dropped there. I want to make sure that the way that it's put in there makes sense. So, work with governmental agencies to acquire riverfront properties within the floodway, maybe like comma along the Snoqualmie River Trail, comma, and to naturalize them.
Yeah.
Does that make more sense?
Long V, okay. Naturalize them in order. Okay,
That's number 1.
Counselor One.
Okay, did we make a change and I was asleep from River Walk to River Trail?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's all.
That's the preferred wording these days.
Dylan did that.
Or no,
Anything else on 5?
is there more on the next page?
Yeah, there's 7 or 8.
On 6, under 6,
6 is the last one.
There's a little bit left of 5.
right, there's no changes on
No
5.
No change.
That's
okay.
just the header. So 6. Councilor Johnson.
Just because it's usually DEI, can we swap the diversity and equity?
No. Yeah, DE and
Be a
Yeah.
little more standard.
I agree.
I like being diverse in my wordage.
different.
Sorry, couldn't resist.
Any other changes?
No change on 7. No change on 8.
Right. Right. Very efficient way. Councilor Johnson.
I just want to make sure they understand what the action is that we're taking tonight in approving this. Is this just like a thumbs up, keep going, but we're still in a circle back after we've gone through all the other things, make sure that everything is still gelling correctly and then pass this officially at the end of the year? Or is this like, hey, we're all done with this?
City Attorney.
It's the first thing, and that's the reason for the fancy verbiage in the motion that Councilmember Washington read, to make sure that everyone understands that the comprehensive plan is supposed to be comprehensive. It's adopted holistically, so it would not really be appropriate to put this one in stone, this element in stone now until all the others have been reviewed, and then you go back at the end. But the point is to kind of put a pin in the map and say, we like this language for now. We're going to stick with it unless we find inconsistencies later. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor say, yeah, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? And then motion passes and we have approved the draft land use element. Anything further for community development?
Nothing at this time.
About Parks and Public Works? Any comments, report?
Yeah, we got an update on a project that's coming forward that I think everybody needs to have their sharpest eye on in Parks and Public Works. There's a planned reservoir for retaining reclaimed water that apparently all ecology from the state has said we need to have a covered reservoir so that it can't be contaminated by things like birds. And this is for water that we use to irrigate, like the median on the parkway, city parks, business park planters. This reservoir is going to cost $8.3 million for us to build, which I think is a remarkable sum of money, considering the fact that we're going to be doing a rate use or a rate study. Rates are going to go up. $8.3 million tells me that reclaimed water is not necessarily the best way to be watering these things. But I just want it to be on everybody's radar that we need to look at this project very carefully and figure out if this is the way we want to go, because up until now, Eagle Lake has been that reservoir. And the concern is now that we have to cover that water up so that no contaminants can get in for health reasons. Meanwhile, over the past 27 years of us doing it the way we've been doing it, there have been no health incidents. So this is an $8.3 million fix of a problem that, in my opinion, doesn't even exist. But there's a lot of other factors to it. I'm simplifying it and only complaining about the things that bother me the most. But I think it's something that needs to be on everybody's radar, because this is a huge expense when we're about to ask people to pay more for their utilities. That's all I wanted to bring up from Parks and Public Works.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, I did just want to throw out the question to those staff who might be in the know, and I think I already know the answer, but in the Southwest and some of their reservoirs, they have these little floating balls that they throw into the reservoirs to cover it up, and it's probably not good enough, but it'd be a whole lot cheaper than lidding it. I'm guessing we can't do that, but I thought I'd ask.
That's what the balls do.
City Attorney or
Oh, no, I don't want that job.
City Minister Chambliss.
Sorry.
Indicate.
Those are to stop evaporation.
Yeah.
They don't prevent
Stop it.
anything adding in.
Felt like I should ask.
The reservoir is really a win, because what we're gonna be required to do is treat everything with chlorine, with very expensive chlorination system and extremely high levels of chlorine that were probably unreachable, so that there was still a chlorine residual when you got out to the sprinkler, which is where the regulations say you have to have a chlorine residual. So I guess it boils down to the question is whether or not you want to use Jeff, I don't remember exactly how many millions of gallons, but I thought it was a lot over summer of drinking water to irrigate with. I mean, that's really what the question is.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
I think it's a homework assignment. In the next Public Works, can we have a discussion of how many gallons of water that is, what that would cost in potable water? And I also want to know there's a lost opportunity here that a lot of our water is already spoken for. So if we add this on the pile, something else has to come out as far as future development or whatever. For that potable water, we only have license for a certain amount out of the springs we have. So if we're gonna divert some of that straight to irrigation out of our potable water system, we lose it for something else. So can we take that as a homework assignment and maybe bring that to next council, but first have a discussion in Public Works and bring it back?
Counselor Vincent?
I'd also like us to consider just pulling the water from the river for irrigation. Why not just do that?
Can't, same thing, it's contaminated. You'd have to chlorinate it.
So you're saying that the river that people swim in, that Fall City has a whole economy devoted to telling people to get into, is too contaminated for us to water our plants with?
But we have experts here, so we have her.
I'm not telling you anything, it's farming ecology.
Can't pull water out of the, excuse me. We can't pull water.
One,
out of
we
the
don't have
river.
rights.
Yeah, we don't have the water right. to
We
do
don't
that.
want-
We're not using all of the water that we have access to. We
We do not currently use all of the water that we have rights to. That's correct.
We don't have surface water rights to the river.
But our surplus, yeah, we don't have surplus, we don't have water rights to pull water out of the river. No.
where do we have rights to pull water out of then?
We have one spring and we have 2 well fields. So in the summertime.
So wait, we can't pull water from the river? I thought we had a pilot program where we could pull water from the river to refill our wells and the aquifer.
Okay, that's a different thing. That is the aquifer storage and recovery project that we are about to pilot study. And that takes water from the spring that we don't use in the winter time. So we have a water right, which is essentially 1 cubic foot per second, which we can collect 24/7, 365 days a year. We can pull that much water out of the spring. That is our right to do that. That's the limit. Well, we don't need that much water most of the time during the winter months. So whatever surplus water is available that we don't use, we would take and put down into our aquifer to pump the aquifer, right? And then we would get what's called a reservoir permit to use our aquifer as a reservoir. And then some of that water leaks out. And then we would have a right to a portion of what doesn't leak out. That is the equivalent of something like, well, it's like 140 acre feet, which translates to about 10 to 15 million gallons a year.
So that's a lot of water.
Quite a bit of water. Currently, you asked how much water we are using. If for reclaimed water that the city uses, it's about 12 million gallons a year of reclaimed water that we use for our own purposes. Another 60 or 70 million gallons of water, of reclaimed water, is used by the golf course to water the golf course. They're not constrained by the same requirements that we have, because it's a point of use thing. Since the water goes to their pond, if the pond is theirs, they own the pond and they use it on their site. So they're allowed to do that without chlorinating. We cannot take water off of that pond and take it and send it to the public and use it without chlorinating it. That is what the reclaimed water rule says. And that was imposed on us back in 2018. And we've been fighting with ecology about that.
So why don't we take the water from the river, like we can, and use that to irrigate?
Actually, yeah.
We can't take it from the river,
But you just said we can take a cubic foot per second.
out of the spring.
Okay, why not use that?
Well.
Would
in
that
the
cost
s-
us
in-
$8.3 million?
In the summer, when we're doing irrigating, we use every bit of that water we get from the spring. And some, and then some. Then we turn on the north well field and we use an additional almost twice again as much.
Right, are we currently pulling that water from the spring at the rate that we can?
Yes,
And we're using all of that water?
not currently, not during the winter months, because right now nobody irrigates. Right, so when we're not irrigating, the spring actually provides us all the water that we need for our consumption. However, once irrigation starts, and starting in about June, then the amount of water that the city uses goes up dramatically. And to the point where the spring can't keep up.
But you're talking.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
You're talking when you're saying irrigation in that context, it's irrigation with potable water, so it's a residential irrigation.
Primarily, yes, that's correct. Yes.
I want to get confused by reclaimed water irrigation, which is
Right.
really what's causing the issue for us.
Right. Now, we did look at the possibility of stopping the reclaimed water altogether for the city use and switching it over to to potable water. And prospects of taking 12 million gallons of water from our budget and using it for irrigation really kind of puts us into a.
So the 12 million gallons is
Councillor
not,
Benson, please seek recognition. We have someone with their hand up. Councilmember Johnson.
So then that 12 million number, could we? You said it puts us in a tight spot, but could we do it?
We could, but not for very long.
Okay.
Right, because it doesn't address the growth issues that we have. Right?
So then if there was going to be a developer that wanted to come in and put in a bazillion houses, could they pay for their need for the extra water?
I don't know that we could actually support a bazillion houses, but I think that
That's the point.
but that is what you kind of hit the point. That's what we're up
719
against.
houses.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of what we're up
can-
against.
If they're building 719 houses, can they pay to put the lid on the aquifer, or not aquifer, the pond?
The reservoir.
Reservoir.
They're gonna build a reservoir.
Technically, yeah, to some degree, but they will to some degree by paying in their general facility charges, right? Their GFCs. So, as to provide for that development, they would have to pay these general facility charges, which is kind of their buy-in to the system, right? You don't just get to show up and plug in and start using it at everybody else's rates. You got to pay for your share of its use and its development. So we could technically use the development fees that we collect for these 719 houses, and that would help pay for the whole utility, all the utility infrastructure.
Councillor Christensen.
So this is probably something that you all have looked into, but are there not federal funds or grants or things like that that could go towards paying this huge sum, since they're requiring us to change these and we're trying to use reclaimed water?
Yeah, for us, there is no grants, but there is very low interest loans. And we are pursuing a very low interest loan, a 0.5% low interest loan.
Okay.
And we have been awarded and I can't remember what it is. I think it's like $5 million or $6 million. So a good portion of that we're going to borrow at very low interest, and that will help us spread that cost out so we don't take, a big hit on our budget.
Councillor Benson.
I would be very interested in looking at the point to which we can use our available assets that we have right now in water to cover our needs. And when the growth comes along, having developers help us to deal with an expense like this, $8.3 million. When we're looking at an increase in utility rates already, to tack on another $8.3 million is, and I understand that this is not necessarily all the responsibility of the residents, but as one of the big clients for this reclaimed water is the city of Snoqualmie, it is. The residents, the citizens of Snoqualmie pay for that. So to the extent that we can have developers pay for the extra water that we need when the development comes, I'm in favor of that.
Councillor Johnson.
I just wanted to thank our Parks Public Works Committee for their hard work that they're going to be doing on this. And I look forward to seeing what you guys bring back to us.
Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
I guess I want to split a hair. Again, as you said, the way we have new entries into the service pay is through those GFCs. This will be rolled into the rate study coming forward and alter those GFCs. There is another method called concurrencies that we typically do not do as a developer comes and we lock, stop and do a shopping list that says, here are all the things you need. We don't currently have, you need to go buy them for us or make room for them. we, based on our comp plan, assume what our growth is, then develop the service to support. If we can't develop the service to support, it doesn't go in the comp plan. And then after that, the cost of that is recouped through the general facility charges. So we'll have to see how that rolls into the analysis to come on rates.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Next item is the Finance and Administration Committee's Public Safety Tax Legal Discussion. City Attorney Linehan, would you please lead the discussion?
I will do my best. I think at this point, it may be more of a Q&A than a discussion. It sounds like there was some concern about a ballot measure that has been proposed or that will be proposed to the public regarding the 0.1% public safety sales tax, sales and use tax. A few council members had asked about what kinds of activities as a council member, as an elected official of the city, they could or could not do in order to opine on their support or certainly lack of support, if that's your position, for the ballot measure. So I guess if you have any questions, I know I've circulated a memo recently to you about that, and I don't know if you had a chance to go through that at this point or not, but certainly if you have any questions generally about what is and isn't allowed under the statute and the associated exceptions, happy to try to field those questions here.
Oh.
It's going to be a short discussion. Okay.
Is it Councilor Johnson?
No, it could be. No, just thank you very much for the memo. It did answer a lot of my questions.
Great. I figured it would.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Watton.
What is the process of the pro and con groups, and how does the administration or the council identify the pro and con proponents? Or I guess if you're con, you're not a proponent.
Opponents, yeah.
Opponent, thank
Yeah.
you.
No, good question. The council gets to appoint the pro committee and the con committee. It can be, I think, up to 3 people. I don't think it can be more than 3. And it's really just a matter of finding volunteers in the community who are willing to serve in that role. Sometimes it can be a prominent citizen who's actively engaged and may have an interest in continuing their engagement in this important public question. Or it may be that you know personally because your constituents have approached you and said, I'm really in favor of this, or I'm really against this. And if you know that they have a particular passion for this issue, then they might be an ideal person for you to consider asking them to take on that responsibility. It's not a glamorous or well remunerated role. Obviously, it's a volunteer position, but it is an important function so that the public is well informed of the pros and the cons.
Follow up to that. When do those people need to be identified, and when do they need to submit their statements to King County?
Good question. I'm sorry I wasn't prepared to answer that particular question tonight. I'm happy to send you the details. I believe the submission deadline for the is about the same time as the submission deadline for the resolution itself, but I have to check and see.
Is it in May?
Depending on which election you're going for. Yeah.
August.
Yeah.
It's May. Okay.
I think it's around the time that candidates have to declare for the election. I think that's the same deadline.
Right. It'll be May. Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
So is that the milestone you're talking there, is that for the identification of pro-con committee, or is that submittal of the pro-con statement?
I think it's for the identification of the committee. The pro-con statement, I think, is later. It's when, it's tied to when they finalize the publication. But don't quote me on that. Like I said, I'm just kind of going off rough memory here. It's been a while since I've looked at one. But I can get you those details.
That's a possible.
Okay, so, but April, May time, we need to identify pro-con committee and it's getting close.
We're thinking about it. Any other comments or questions for Councilor Benson?
Is there a way that we go about advertising that we want people who are pro and con? Are there specific ways that we're allowed to do that and to solicit people to serve on those committees?
Yes, there's no like formal process. It's like the approved way to do it, but you know, a normal and regular course of business for the city. I'm sure if you have a newsletter where you invite people to submit for any other committee that they might serve on or commission, posting an opening, mentioning that you're interested in soliciting, interest from residents who might be willing to serve in that role, inviting them to contact somebody. You can put somebody in charge at the city of receiving those, whether that's somebody in finance or the mayor's office or somebody to kind of receive that information.
And I assume something like that would have to be very purposely neutrally worded with
Correct.
regard to the outcome of the proposal.
Right. It wouldn't be outcome focused at all. It would be focused on the process of disseminating information and presenting the pro and the con viewpoint. So,
Councilor Watton?
I just did a quick review. The pro and con committee appointments are due May 3rd.
May 3rd. Okay.
And the statements from each of those committees is due May 14th, and the rebuttals are due May 16th.
It's a faster deadline for those than I thought. Okay.
Faster around.
That's a fast schedule. All right.
Yeah, well, they have to get everything ready for the pamphlet.
So it's just a couple of weeks that they're
They're working on it.
All right.
That doesn't mean that their activities conclude at that period of time. That's just the statement that they're going to sort of be their mission statement for their pro or con committee.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson.
And then those committees that are appointed by the council, can they as a committee do other activities to promote their position besides that work? And are there limitations on that?
Well, they can always use their own resources to do
Right.
anything. So
I mean, like in that capacity as we are the appointed members of the Snoqualmie, blah, 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 and officially by the city council, and we are doing these things. They can have that banner while they're doing the activity.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Councilor Benson?
Would it be inappropriate to have those for the city to host an event that involves those committees to discuss or debate?
So that would be one of the 3 exceptions for not using city facilities to support a ballot measure or to oppose a ballot measure. If your city normally rents out space to public, to community groups, if that's a thing that, the city normally and regularly does as part of its normal course of business, hosts events, rents out space, provides event space, you could definitely host a forum, a pro and a con forum, either separate pro and con forums or a combined pro and con forum that would be hands off from the council. It would just be making the space available for that to happen. You could trust your pro and your con committee to organize the speakers and put that on.
Councilor Watton?
So members of the council can participate on either the pro or the con, but the difference is you cannot use your city email
Correct.
in working on that, or city time or space, that sort of thing.
Correct. It's tricky because you got to really keep a fine distinction there. So
Yeah.
Councilor Watton?
So you're representing yourself. So you're not representing
Correct.
the council or your position that you were elected to or appointed to.
correct.
Just keep that in mind.
Anything on this? Anything else? Right, so we have a little work ahead of us. Okay, next item, committee of the whole. It's council retreat discussion, Mayor Pro Tem Holloway.
big question for tonight as we have a consultant who's willing to help but has limited dates. I think, Dina, our current dates are,
March 23rd, April 5th, and April 6th.
and I think we were settling kind of in the April 5th or 6th. Is there anybody have preference between those two?
That's a Friday or
Friday
Saturday.
is the 5th, Saturday is the 6th.
I prefer the Saturday.
Was he available on Saturday?
I never received this response.
Okay.
I prefer, oh, thank you. I'd,
Are you the facilitator? I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, the facilitator is, he's available all 3 of these dates.
Okay. I would prefer the 6th between the two. If it's the Friday, I actually, that's one of the days I contractually can't take the day off. So I literally wouldn't be able to. Because the following week is spring break.
Oh, okay. Why would they do that to you?
Can't use
All right.
sick time.
But the 6th would be possible. I would have to join remotely.
I mean, all right, anybody object to the 6th? So let it be written, so let it be so. Let's go for the 6th.
Okay.
That was easy.
Did you settle on the agenda?
That's all for tonight. Yeah, that's all for tonight.
So you want that on the FNA to talk about it? Oh, I think the facilitator also wants to be part of helping set the agenda.
Yes, please.
We will reach out. Okay, great. Thank you. That was fast.
Decided on location.
Okay, next item is mayor's report. There's lots of stuff going on. So this week we have 2 events. We have the Community Center Expansion Town Hall on Wednesday night. We're hoping that all council members can attend and engage with their community and listen to their thoughts and questions about the project. And it starts at 7 p.m. at the Community Center. So that's Wednesday. And then Thursday at 6 p.m. right here in the council chambers, they are doing another open house for the Snoqualmie Parks and Open Spaces. So if you didn't attend the other one, it's pretty interesting to come and talk with individuals and then kind of see what people are interested in. So okay, so CA Carey, not everyone will know about this, but I know one will. He's staring at me right now. The appeal on the Public Works Contract Town Center infrastructure improvements for phase 2. The final judgment was they dismissed the case. And the city will be awarded attorney fees and costs. And so there's different things that have to happen by mid-March, and they can still go to the Supreme Court. If that happens, then things will continue to drag out. But otherwise, the case is dismissed and we will see an end to this. So I see a smile. That's good. Mr. Holloway, your friend Holloway.
Yes, certain things do flow downhill, and I'm glad the court agrees.
Yes. So, okay. So today, the Snoqualmie Valley Transportation, they announced that they do have funding through King County Metro to add a 3rd bus. So this means, this is starting March 4th, that buses shuttling riders up and down State Route 202 and 203 between North Bend and Duval, the frequency will improve. And so currently it's about a 90-minute, each pickup is actually shrink to about 60 minutes. So it's actually a nice benefit for our residents and businesses and everyone that uses those. So it was good news. We have SCA networking dinner next Wednesday, March 6th, and it's featuring regional leaders, Josh Brown from King County Department of Natural Resources, Claudia Belducci, King County Councilmember, John Taylor, Director of Department of Local Services for King County. So if you wish to attend, please let City Clerk know and she will sign you up. And City of Snoqualmie, we just found out, has been chosen as one of 117 cities across Washington State to be the recipient of the 2024 Well City Award. So we are a Well City. This is given out annually to cities that have established a wellness program and have a workplace that supports employee well-being. And I'd like to thank our Wellness Committee for all their work, our Wellness Coordinator, Sam Broomfield, for her commitment to this program and our employees that have actively participated in the program. So this means our city will receive like a 2% savings on our insurance premiums, which is
Wow.
substantial.
That's-
So that's a big deal.
Very good.
And then final, I was on Olympia this week, and I hand carried a letter to our Senator Mullet regarding funding for Echo Glen, and also left one for Senator Hawkins, who, you know, represents actually North Bend area. So it's important that Echo Glen gets all the funding they can for their capital and security enhancements. So if you haven't already, I know Councilor Cotton had sent out an email today. So please continue. We hope to get that funded because it's budget time right now. So that is it. So do we have any committee liaison reports? Councilor Christensen.
Yeah, so just as an update on the Y, they have a big annual event. It's going to be on April 20th. It's a Healthy Kids Day. It's open to the community. They're looking for volunteers, including teens who need volunteer hours. They're also currently engaged in their fund drive, which is where they have a goal of raising $60,000. Assuming, well, the amount that they're able to use is then used only at the Snoqualmie branch. And it supports anything that's fee-based. So whether it's for a family who would like to engage their kids in sports, but they don't have the financial means to do so, it's used for as scholarship funds for that, for the shower program, for the teen events and things of that nature. So they are always looking for support.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilor Watton.
Thank you. First of all, I attended my Regional Law, Safety and Justice Committee meeting last week. We talked about responses to domestic abuse, and I shared the report to Chief Lynch and for further consideration. We also talked about the regional crisis care clinics and how that's going to evolve. We'll stay on top of that. And then the third thing is we talked about retail theft and some of the things that have happened here locally that are kind of mimic what's happening as well over in Federal Way. With 8 of the jurisdictions present in our group, it's always good to share what we're finding in our communities and how to be proactive in making sure that our communities stay as safe as possible. March 6th is my next affordable housing chat. We'll be looking at different ways of financing and looking at potential RFPs for both cities on small parcels. And then lastly, the Economic Alliance of Snoqualmie Valley between the cities of Carnation, Duval, North Bend, and Snoqualmie. Our fourth city, the city of North Bend, approved it last week. Now we're moving on this week for final approval by the Snoqualmie Indian tribe in this kind of historic arrangement. And the Snow Valley Chamber of Commerce and Snow Valley Innovation Center have been busy working with other partners. Today, we met with the Port of Seattle in coordinating some tourism activities. I've been in consultation and helped one business in the last week through the Business Impact Northwest. And we're also in conversations with Department of Commerce in ways that we can work regionally together, small cities working together to help increase a vibrant local economy and support tourism.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other reports? All right, seeing none, we will now move into, we have an executive session and a closed session tonight. And executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101AI to discuss legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions, or to discuss legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or member acting in an official capacity is or likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to be in an adverse legal or financial consequence. So this will last how long, do you think? 10 minutes. 10 minutes. And then the second one, those attending would be our city administrator Chambliss, and interim city attorney Lenahan. And the second one is a closed session pursuant to RCW 42.30.1404B for the planning or adoption of a strategy or position to be taken during the course of any collective bargaining proceedings or reviewing the proposal made in the negotiations or proceedings lasting approximately 10 minutes. No action is anticipated following conclusion of the closed and also the executive session. So the council will adjourn directly from these sessions and not return to the open session. The city clerk will be informed of the concluding time, which will be reflected in the meeting minutes. So at this point, we will, I guess, close down our video and we will stay here. And we will take a 5-minute break. And we will be back by 8:40. Thank you.
8:40, be back by 8:19
Well, 8:19, we will finish at
at
8:40.
8:40.
Yes.
Both sessions. Okay.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Maybe.
Yeah, right.
Depending on you.
No questions.
Collectively.